President Trump insists everybody loves his plan to take over the Gaza Strip, move Palestinians out and rebuild it as a Riviera of the Middle East. Donald Trump has prompted widespread condemnation around the world, but he has been praised widely in Israel and by his supporters in Washington for his bold thinking and saying the things no one else dares to voice. This is what is left of the Gaza Strip after 15 months of war. More than 2 million Palestinians live here. The president's plan is to resettle Palestinians away from Gaza, relocate them to Egypt and Jordan, even though those countries have said no. Our first report tonight is from our North America editor, Sarah Smith, in Washington.
There were all the usual greetings and hellos before that jaw-dropping announcement on Gaza. Even the Israeli Prime Minister didn't seem to know the scale of what was awaiting him inside.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site.
So many immediate questions. Where would 2 million Palestinians go?
Let's go.
President Trump suggested Egypt, Jordan and other neighbouring countries who have already said no.
Say it. Go ahead.
And would Palestinians have a right to return? Who does he see living in this rebuilt Gaza?
I envision a world, people living there, the world's people. I think you'll make that into an international, unbelievable place. We have an opportunity to do something that could be phenomenal. And I don't want to be cute, I don't want to be a wise guy, but the Riviera of the Middle East, this could be something that could be so this could be so magnificent.
No wonder Mr. Netanyahu said Donald Trump is the greatest friend Israel has ever had in the White House. The idea of displacing all Palestinians from Gaza was roundly rejected by Palestinian leaders who said there can never be peace without a Palestinian state, and with Gaza as an integral part of that. Hamas, whose 2023 attacks on Israel provoked this conflict, called the plan expulsion from their land.
Thank you very much.
The American president's plan has also been completely condemned by Arab countries in the Middle East. But Mr. Trump believes he can strong-arm anyone, insisting Israel's neighbours will accept displaced Palestinians.
Well, I think Jordan and Egypt will. I know they've spoken about it with you, and they say they're not going to accept. I say they will.
Many Democrats are appalled.
It is horrific. It is the definition of ethnic cleansing. It is part of the culmination of what I view to be genocide of the Palestinian people.
Y el secretario de Estado, Marco Rubio.
On a visit to Guatemala City, President Trump's top diplomat seemed to say control of Gaza would be temporary before people could return after reconstruction.
So what he's very generously has offered is the ability of the United States to go in and help with debris removal, help with munitions removal, help with reconstruction, the rebuilding homes and businesses and things of this nature, so that then people can move back in.
Thank you.
Donald Trump talked about long-term US ownership of Gaza, but even he could not explain what legal authority would allow that to happen or let him redraw the map of the world. Now, as people have been trying to pin down the details of Donald Trump's plan today, we've heard some of his most senior officials appearing to tone down what it was that he had to say. You heard the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, talking about people moving back to Palestine. The official White House spokeswoman talked about the temporary relocation of Palestinians. And also Donald Trump's Middle East envoy told Republican senators today that there would be no boots on the ground, even though Donald Trump didn't rule out the use of force to take over Palestine. And he also said that no American dollars would be spent on this effort. So it does appear that some people in the Trump administration are trying to walk back this plan a bit, and as a result, there's certainly no more clarity about exactly what it is that President Trump wants to do with Gaza.
Sarah Smith in Washington, thank you. Well, almost the entire population of Gaza has been displaced by the conflict. For those now returning, the journey home is just the start of a deeply uncertain future. International news organisations still aren't allowed independent access to Gaza. Lucy Williamson sent this report from Jerusalem.
Where Donald Trump sees a future Riviera of the Middle East, Gazans see the beauty of what used to be here. The homes and lives they built before American weapons destroyed them. dropped by Israel during 15 months of war. More than 500,000 people have returned to their homes in Gaza's northern areas since the ceasefire began. Defiance, still their first response to the fantasies of a president and the realities of home.
Neither Trump nor anyone else matters to me. After he made Israel destroy our houses in Gaza, now he's telling us Gaza is destroyed and we have to leave. We will clean up the rubble, sit on it and live, whether they like it or not.
The ceasefire has meant much more aid is getting into Gaza. The priority has been food. The UN says 2 million people are fully dependent on food aid. But the lack of shelter has meant tens of thousands of new arrivals already returning to the south. Life here precarious, even in the absence of war. There aren't enough tents to go around. The Tayeb family used to live in a tower block in Bet Hanoun, razed to the ground in the war.
We're trying to build a shelter ourselves, rod by rod. We are worried about it raining on us. I'm worried about everything. But I want to stay on my land, to live and die on it, even in a tent.
Many Gazans trace their roots to places in what is now Israel. Refugees from the war that marked Israel's creation as a state. Many still see Gaza itself as a temporary shelter, determined that they will one day have the right to go home. Lucy Williamson, BBC News, Jerusalem.
So is Donald Trump's plan for Gaza even possible? That's a question that Nick Eardley from BBC Verify has been looking at for us, and he's here now. Nick.
Thanks, Sophie. The past 15 months of war has done a huge amount of damage in Gaza. Hundreds of thousands of people have been displaced. Infrastructure has been reduced to rubble. But is Donald Trump's proposal to turn this piece of land into what he calls the Riviera of the Middle East the answer? Experts say the idea would almost certainly breach international law. The United Nations Charter, an international treaty, makes it clear it can't happen by force. This is Article 2, which says members must refrain from the threat or use of force. It's also hard to see a situation in which President Trump could get Palestinians to agree to his idea. Hamas, designated a terrorist organisation by the UK and others, runs the Strip. It's called the plans ridiculous and absurd. The idea has also been strongly rejected by the Palestinian Authority, which governs part of the West Bank. Israel, by the way, can't make the decision to cede territory in Gaza by itself, according to legal experts, who say it has no right to do so as an occupying power. Another issue with President Trump's idea: forced and permanent displacement is illegal under international law. Let me show you Article 49 of the Geneva Conventions coming up here. It says that forcible transfers of people are prohibited regardless of the motive, even if the plan went ahead. It's not clear where people would go. The US president has suggested Jordan or Egypt take them in, but Arab states have rejected the idea, previously saying it threatens regional stability and undermines the prospects for peace. So there are significant legal issues with the idea of a US takeover of the Gaza Strip, and some big practical problems too. Sophie.
Nick, thank you. Our international editor, Jeremy Bowen, is with me. Despite the legal issues, the big obstacles that Nick is talking about, President Trump sounds like he thinks he can do this.
Yeah, he certainly does, because he's the president of the United States. He's the most powerful man in the world. And that's why, in fact, even though his officials have been, as they put it, walking back some of these things he's been saying, his words matter and they will have consequences. I think they fuel those people on the ultra-nationalist right in Israel who believe that not just Gaza, but all the land from between the Mediterranean and the River Jordan is God-given to the Jewish people. They also, it stokes the fears of Palestinians who believe that they are in a terrible genocidal moment, that the Israelis want to kick them out of Gaza, take the land, and now they fear that the Americans, President Trump, is putting his weight behind them. I think from Netanyahu's point of view, he's pretty happy because he expected to maybe go to Washington and to be put under public pressure to talk about whether or not the ceasefire in Gaza will continue. Instead of that, people are talking about what Donald Trump has said. But however, that ceasefire is still there and it is still fragile. And a senior Arab diplomatic source said to me today that he fears that this could be the death knell for that ceasefire. We'll see.